From the Middle is a founding member of Oddpods Media. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 257 of From the Middle. We are a podcast. You already knew that part. You probably also know that we're a comedy and culture podcast, unless you've listened to us and you're looking for the comedy part still. It's there sometimes. This week, we kick things off with what some might consider the best president of the United States. He's not a guest. We're trying. But Abe Lincoln makes an appearance. Dillon has a garage sale. We talk about things that are different between our childhood and our children's childhood, specifically looking at summertime and a little bit about book reports, typewriters versus word processing, summers now versus summers then, woods, not playing in the woods, video games, music, all of that stuff. We're even talking about cursive handwriting and how kids these days are holding utensils. And Corey did not join us again this week because he is still in Hawaii. We wish him the best when we hope to see him next week. This week, it's just me. My name is K Money, and I'm here with Juicy Dillon. Enjoy.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Hey, Kendall and Dillon, and no Corey again.
Yeah. Well, he'll be back probably, we think, next week.
Maybe.
Unless he decides to never come home from Hawaii, which is possible. So
yeah. I mean, I know they have internet there, but I'm not sure he'd want to have to use it while he's there. Yeah. So he'd much rather just enjoy the beach or the ocean or everything we're not doing. So
I mean, he's going to Northland with the kids.
He is, yeah.
Jumping off of things. And
I like to go to Lowe's and dump out a bag of sand, and then I can just play that and then leave when I'm done. Just kidding. How you doing this week, buddy? We had a nice conversation last week. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. What's been going on this week?
Oh boy, this week kind of a bunch of the same. This week, still rolling through baseball season, and figuring that out. We're going to the library twice a week. As one of the kiddos is getting a little extra reading help. Reading at the library for that, and then the rest of us are just kind of like sitting around for an hour reading books ourselves. So it's been a very ready kind of summer so far.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure you had never heard of a library before I talked about it a few weeks
indeed ago. It turns out it's awesome. They've got all kinds of books there. You can take them home. I know tons of listeners have been like, I had no idea even to think about the library. I didn't even know that was a thing, and then you brought it up. And then you made me want to go. So that's great feedback. Thanks. And as I'm sure it's probably going to come back up later in conversation because Abraham Lincoln always comes up in conversation. But funnily enough, and Corey's going to find this funnier than probably most anyone else, but no less than 2 weeks ago at the library, I actually picked this up.
Beautiful.
By chance. So that was an Abraham Lincoln book for anyone who wasn't looking at the
non-YouTube. I mean, you should subscribe to our channel and hit the ding bell to be notified of new content. But that was an Abraham Lincoln book. And we, much like artists often don't get credit, authors often don't as well. Who was the author on that Lincoln book?
Well, I don't know if I want to say George McGovern. And he has been putting together these books, I think, just going down the line of presidents.
Okay.
And I've read partway through. I don't think I'm going to finish it, mainly because it reads kind of textbookish to me. Or he's not really grabbing my attention with his writing, which unfortunately for me is like I've read nonfiction books before and biographies and things before that were, for me personally, a much easier read, pulled me along. This one isn't quite doing that for me. So I know that the library has other books on Abe Lincoln, and I am interested. So I'll probably try another one.
Yeah, I would say for anyone not into history or who doesn't read a lot of stuff nonfiction, Ken Burns is a good place to start with some of his documentary.
Indeed.
He's done a really good job at sort of capturing the American experience in various books and documentaries and things like that.
Mhm.
So Ken Burns would be a good person to look out for. If you don't know where to start, probably could get something on the Civil War that would cover enough about Lincoln that
Mhm.
that could capture your interest and hold it. It's funny that you say that because we've been getting ready for a garage sale, and there's been a few like key things that have been really hard to sort through. And actually, Bree and I have, my wife Bree and I have almost um, unanimously agreed on what to keep and what to get rid of. It's been really the actual lifting and unboxing and moving has been physically difficult, but the sifting through has not been difficult.
That's good.
Um, but I've had some piles of things that were specific to me that I've been working through that are more challenging. Her and I have only had one thing that's been really tough to decide on, and it's more hers, so it's really her decision. I'll come back to that. But some of my things are like childhood toys that like my parents have brought, and it's like, what's worth keeping? What's worth just getting rid of, what might have some value and be worth throwing on an app or on eBay or something to try to see if I can get a few more bucks for it. But one of the things that's been kind of tough that for me has been I have lots of history books, interestingly. For some people, because they don't know that I have a degree in history from Ohio State. And history books are sometimes the most challenging because I know a lot of them are like handpicked by professors as some of their favorite content. So most of the books are really good.
Mhm.
They're some of the best on their specific topics. And I used all my electives at Ohio State to just take more history classes. So I've got a bunch. And for people who don't know, sometimes you go take a college course and there's just like one expensive textbook. History classes like to assign a bunch of primary and secondary sources. I think my class that had the most, I had 13 books I had to buy for one history
Wow.
class. Most of the history classes that I took were 2 to 5 books, different
Mhm.
books that you would use throughout I was on quarters. So I have a lot. Like I had accrued a lot and it wasn't worth getting rid of before, but now I'm trying to go through because so much is available on the internet. There's so many good documentaries that cover different periods of history really well that you can go in and
Mhm.
watch, or podcasts now that weren't a thing that you can go listen to. And as we learn more about history, or the actual experts, books often need updated because we found out things. What's a big one? Um, as an example, World War II, the Allies knew about the concentration camps much earlier than people thought for a long time. They weren't finding out about them in 1944. It was like the
Mhm.
early 40s. So things like that come to light as in more information is found and revealed. Anyways, it's been tough sifting through books. And I had several. It's funny that you said Lincoln. I've had several like really good Revolutionary and Civil War books that I've been deciding on. And as I've been poking through those books, I've been like Googling some stuff too to just see like get some more information without having to look through a whole book. And I found I was looking up Lincoln, and I have some interesting Lincoln facts. Do you want to hear any interesting Lincoln facts?
Yeah.
We don't do like did you knows very often on this podcast,
Right.
but this will be one of those. So for anybody, since Lincoln's such a popular president, here's some little known Lincoln facts. At 6 foot 4 inches, Abraham Lincoln was the tallest president. I think everyone knows he was tall, but he is the
Mhm.
tallest president. Lincoln was the first president to be born outside of the original 13 colonies. He was born in Kentucky, for anybody that doesn't.
Mhm.
He was the first president to be photographed at his inauguration. John Wilkes Booth, who ended up being his assassin, can be seen standing close to Lincoln in the picture, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
In spite of having 4 sons, there are no direct descendants of Abraham Lincoln, which I think is why. I mean, I guess disease and war and things happen, but still,
Mhm.
you'd think 4 sons, odds are, you got to have uh, You got to have something. During the Civil War, telegraph wires were strung to follow the action on the battlefield, but there was no telegraph office in the White House. So Lincoln went across the street to the War Department to get the news. That's interesting. Lincoln was the only president to have received a patent. It was for a device that could lift boats over, I don't know if it's shoals or shawls. I don't know how to say it, but basically shallow water to lift boats over water. Let's see. Lincoln's son, Robert, who was in Washington when his father was killed, was also on the scene when President Garfield was shot in 1881 and when President McKinley was assassinated in 1901.
Wow.
Conspiracy theorists would say Robert had something to do with some assassinations. Apparently, since he was around. Lincoln and his wife held seances in the White House. They had great interest in psychic phenomena. Lincoln was the first president to wear a beard and had the largest shoe size documented. He wore size 14. Those facts all come from constitutioncenter.org. So you can feel pretty good about their status. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So that's funny that you said Lincoln and then have happened to be reading about Lincoln. So some fun facts are in order.
That is fun. And like I am 6'4". I wear a size 14 shoe. I have a beard. If anybody tries to secede from the Union on my watch,
yeah,
it ain't going down. That's all.
Is that the transitive property? You are Abraham Lincoln. Is that what that means?
I think the no known descendant, and I think we found one.
I think we did find one. Do you have any family in Kentucky?
Were any of his sons Finnish?
Sure. That is not a little known fact, but let's say sure. Yes, he's often known for his remarks about Finnish culture and his preferences for Scandinavian food.
There you go.
The finished and fittest president.
Abraham. Hey, I bought some sardines just yesterday. That's
those later facts are from notreal.net. So ignore those. Also, one thing that I mentioned, we're having a challenge over one particular item. And I know exactly why. This is kind of weird. So it's not weird people have antiques, but we have an old antique typewriter that was somebody's in the family and somebody in Bree's family, and she wanted to put it on display, which was a great idea. We've got shelves, we've got decor pieces in our house. It's very popular right now to put something like a typewriter on display. Funny enough, as some people know, I'm a big fan of Lego, and my wife is a mild, light fan of Lego, but Lego makes a typewriter. And Bree wanted it, and we bought it a while back, and she built it, and she has that one on display, not the actual typewriter.
Oh, they need to go next to each other.
It's this big, huge, chunky. So as we were deciding and we're moving things around, she's sort of pacing and pondering about different things in the typewriter. And I find myself constantly lifting what feels like a 50-pound typewriter on and off shelves to like move it out of the way and around. Like, I think I want to sell it. Okay. I'm not sure that I want to sell it yet. And so I got a workout just from that one singular item, as we've decided it's currently still on the shelf and not as of now, not for sale. So don't come to my house looking for an old timey typewriter, but they are very cool. It's not like the kind of weird 80s ones that tried to look like modern computers at the time, but this is like old, really old. So it is neat looking, but I don't know now, though. It feels like the Lego typewriter accomplishes a similar thing, and most people look at it and don't know that it's Lego. They just go, oh, a typewriter, that's cool, and then they move on. So I don't know. So if anybody wants to pay a lot for an old typewriter, they can come to my house. We could probably part with it, but that's the only thing that's really been up in the air of all the garage sale items. So if anybody else is interested in old typewriters, let me know.
Typewriters. I remember my sister, who's 7 years older than me, using a typewriter for school. And I'm old enough that like my very first like book reports and such were not done with a word processor because we didn't have a computer yet, or at least we didn't have word processing at that age. And so they were handwritten, but I had the option of using a typewriter. I chose not to. I didn't want to. I didn't know how to use the thing, so I hand wrote final drafts, which that's I'm sure a thing of the past these days.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it was legit. Like you had to handwrite your rough drafts and edit them. You send those into the teacher. The teacher sends them back with your edits, and then you have to like sit down and painstakingly handwrite very neatly, letter by letter, a final draft, and it had to look good in
Yeah.
order for it to count.
That was its own whole thing, right? It wasn't even the content and the edits, but it was
Exactly.
like it had to the words had to look nice.
The words had to look nice.
Part of the written report.
And you had to make sure that you didn't screw anything up. Like it was the final draft. It couldn't have scratch outs and things. Like if you had scratch outs, you were redoing. Like it was as simple as that.
Well, that was where whiteout came in. Maybe.
I don't remember really using whiteout, but maybe I also didn't care so much if there were mistakes. I don't remember.
That's awesome.
That's very possible.
That's a whole different set of problems than now, right? Like, so now kids are like, I didn't use AI to write my paper.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a whole different thing. But I also don't understand, and maybe somebody much younger can explain. Like, I'm sure most kids don't learn cursive anymore. Why would they? But then who teaches them to sign their names? And how do they read it when other people that are older do cursive stuff, but they just kind of figure it out?
Well, interestingly is I write in cursive. So when I handwrite, I'm writing in cursive. And I still do. My kids and we started doing family-oriented journals this summer, which has been a fun idea, just to help them keep up on writing and spelling and thinking of what to write and things like that for school, in the same way that you would have your kid read over the summer. And so we've been writing these journals, and like we sit down and it with the knowledge that these journals are going to be read for everybody in the family to enjoy what everyone else is thinking. And then they also, like, I know Lydia, and I think one of the other kids has something else that he does. But like, if you want a private one that's your own private space, you can do that too. But we're going to work on our writing together with these family journals, which has been great. But I'm writing those in cursive, and like my hand starts to get a little weak and funny. So I'm like, my hand endurance isn't what it used to be, apparently. But it's funny. So they've been doing that over the summer. And then I've been thinking about what their summer this year is looking like, and thinking about what my summers as a kid looked like. And first of all, reading and writing over the summer was not what my summers looked like. They looked like video games sometimes. But then I don't know. Have you thought about, like, anytime recently with having a little kid around, like, what does her summer look like versus what my summers used to look like?
Well, in some ways they're like very different because of technology and just also where we live. Like, meaning Corey and I grew up in the middle of, a 7-acre wooded lot with farms around our house. And and my grandparents, the closest grandparents, had a pond. That's a very different experience than, we live in a subdivision on a corner lot, and the closest grandparents don't have any water, but they get out a little blow up pool that you can lay in and splash around in.
Yeah.
So like, that to start is already very different. Like, growing up in the country and around farm, I'm not saying one's better or worse. I'm just saying there's very different. And so in some ways it's, I think, like, she's got an iPad with every access to everything on Disney Plus and Netflix and whatever that she could want to watch, that we let her get on sometimes and play games and shows. And we had whatever, we had classic Mario, like you're popping in your Super NES to play a Mario platformer, or turning on the Sega to play some Sonic or something. And if you were lucky, you had a couple games that you could play, not the entire app store. And, you had whatever toys that you had. And so very, very different. Finn doesn't play much video games, not because she doesn't like it, but because we try to limit some of that. But like even that, I was just thinking about the other day. So we have a Switch and we have a PlayStation 5. And um, so like she plays Switch. That's the console she's kind of growing up on. PS5 doesn't really make sense for her yet. But like I feel like kids now, even with Mario, are so much more interested in like Mario Kart, where when we were kids, we were much more into the platform Mario and playing classic, what would be like classic Mario. And then Mario Kart was a lot of fun, but it wasn't like the game. Like if you had a Sega, you played Sonic, you played Crash Bandicoot, whatever. If you had Nintendo, you were playing the Mario game. And then
Right.
you throw on other stuff like Smash Brothers, or you throw on Mario Kart sometimes, or Pokemon or whatever. So it's so different. I looked it up because I was curious. It feels like kids play so much more Mario Kart. The Switch Mario Kart Ultimate has almost doubled Super Smash Brothers in sales, and it's more than doubled the best-selling Mario platform game.
Wow.
So like it's not even close. Far more kids are likely playing Mario Kart as their quote Mario game growing up than they're playing. Even Smash Brothers is more popular than the most popular Mario platform game, although there are multiple Mario platform games that have come out on the Switch.
Wow.
It's still like 70 million units of Mario Kart, and then it's like 30 some of Smash Brothers, and then like 27 of the top Mario platform. So it's so, even video games are so different because it's still Mario, but like a racing game is way different than it's a different kind of challenge than, I can't quite make this triple jump to land this thing to beat this level. And I've tried it 142 times and I can't. It's like, oh, that race was hard. On to the next one.
Yeah. And finding secret rooms and things. And
yeah,
that's wild. What's really wild to me is the perspective on the characters would be wildly different. Like we have backstory and context for each of the characters that show up in Mario Kart. And the kids these days, do they just like not know who these characters are or what they were in the original platform games? And like,
I don't know. I mean, if you only play Smash and on top of that, you loved Mario because you played as Mario so much. And now you might play Mario Kart and never play as Mario. It's like you might go to Disney World, not even care if you see Mickey and Minnie, because there's so many characters that like it's not like, oh, Mickey and Minnie are the characters. Mario is the character. If you're mostly just playing Mario Kart, it's whatever carrier or player you want to play as.
Yeah.
So anyways, very different to answer your question. I do think about that. I think about like how different her toys are, her clothes are, her, video games and movies and schooling. And, it's all so different. I mean, yes, there's the common themes of getting together for, having a fun birthday party or getting together with family on family trips. And there's still that stuff, the, love and encouragement and support and all of that are still there. I think about like she's at Vacation Bible School this week or VBS. Like we went to VBS when we were kids and sang songs and played outside and did crafts. And so some things feel very similar. But a lot of it feels so different.
Yeah. I find the differences. So I think kind of similar to you and Corey, like I had woods around our house and we spent a lot of our days in the woods building forts and whatever. And we also had a creek that was like a couple of acres away from our home that we would walk through the woods to get to, and we would fish at the creek sometimes and things like that. But like inside, even for me, what I'm finding is very different. Maybe environmental there. Like my sisters and I, we would come up with games. Like we would invent games to play. We had a basement, and there was one sort of third of the basement that had hard linoleum floor, and the rest of the basement was carpeted. And so like we would have these rules where like somebody would have a ball and they would be standing on the carpet and then the other two are on the linoleum floor running back and forth, and the walls are bass. And so you just have to like run from wall to wall, and the other person's trying to smash you with a ball. Like we did that forever. My older sister had like a kid's record player, and that was our music. Like we didn't even have all that many cassette tapes. The few that we had were like in the van that we used for road trips and stuff. And so like we played records when I was a kid on this little thing, and it would be two things almost like on repeat wasn't a thing. It was we had to go and like manually flip a record over or like move the needle back. But we had the Snap Crackle Pop Rice Krispies album, and we had an Alvin and the Chipmunks album.
Alvin and the Chipmunks,
which was really fun, because we then found out that like you could listen to other records and just like speed the record player up, and everything became an Alvin and the Chipmunks album.
Yeah. Oh, that was so fun. Like you had to play with it and like, hey, listen to this. That sounds like Alvin now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to this day, I'm sure that if that album would start playing, I can't remember much offhand other than like the actual theme song of the show. But if that album were to come on, I'm sure that like every word would come to my mind.
Oh, I'd be
able to get to it.
I had Alvin and the Chipmunks like Christmas music in my Christmas playlist for years. You'd have Mariah Carey and then Michael Bublé and then, Bing Crosby, and then Alvin's would work their way in. And, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Yeah. That's so funny.
I want a hula hoop.
Yeah. And it feels so nostalgic still. Just to hear it like triggers is one of those like triggers of my childhood. I was thinking about this. I don't know whenever I would have last thought of Alvin and the Chipmunks. But they feel like probably, there was an article the other day that was talking about one of the movies, and it was referencing an actor or something that was in it. I wasn't important the actor, but I was thinking about that. It's the only, for whatever reason, they're the only movie that making them like 3D animated just doesn't work for me. I don't care that they've animated Sonic or Mario, or they could do it with the Jetsons, or they could do it with whatever. But something about Alvin and the Chipmunks just feels better in traditional animation. Yeah. I don't know why. It just feels right. Charlie Brown looks good in new animation. So it's not that it's old cartoons, but something about them specifically, I don't know if it's because they're animals and they looked so good at the time in traditional animation. But even when I see like the trailers for those movies, it's just sort of like, I don't know. I know I'm not a kid, but it's not uncommon for me to watch cartoons and want to watch cartoons and Disney things and whatever with my kid. So it's so funny you bring up the Chipmunk. I think they just looked really good as traditionally animated characters.
Yeah.
Sort of like if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
I kind of feel that way about like the more realistic you try to make animation look, kind of the creepier it gets. Like there's a line there that like if you go too far down, you've gone way too far.
I think
like it still has to look like a cartoon to me. Like,
yeah, I think people felt that way with kind of Polar Express. Like it has a little. We've talked about it before. It's a little uncanny valley kind of thing. I think the Chipmunks are kind of polarizing. I feel like with the Christmas music, especially, people kind of love it, or they're like, turn this off. Next song.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But that's so funny.
Who are we to stray away from the hard-hitting topics, though? So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I have a follow-up question on the journals, of course, but this does feel like a really great place to take a break, hear from some of our very good friends in Odd Pods Media, and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Grab 'Em Brisket Podcast. Join us every Monday where we talk about the latest trends in barbecue, interviews with world top pitmasters, celebrity cooks.
Ooh, like Wee Man from Jackass.
And musicians.
Like Rich O'Toole?
So check us out. We do beer reviews, barbecue fails.
So many fires.
Dude, a lot of people just burn their houses down for no reason.
We also talk about cocaine hippos versus meth gators.
Learn how to make some tailgate gravy.
Altercations with Texas Rangers.
People throwing Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, so check out grabthebrisket.com for podcast info, viral social media posts, and so much more.
Hey, that's a great show. Definitely go download every single one of their episodes. So, anyways, we were talking a little bit about your journaling, and I want to pick at that a little bit. So, you're sharing with the family. Um, can you share any stories? You don't have to ID the kid, maybe, or maybe it's one of yours or Amy's. Can you share a funny story or a funny thought if you have any? And maybe that's not the point of the journal, so it's okay to say that. And also, have your kids looked at all of your cursive handwriting and have they wondered what it is, or can they read it? That's my follow-up. Is it legible to them, even though they don't presumably learn how to write in cursive?
So my handwriting is like most people's handwriting. It's for the most part meant for me to read. And so I've never really cared so much about what it looked like, but what I'm using this journaling for this summer is to actually make my handwriting look better so that they can read it. They're not great at reading cursive right now, but funnily enough, I talked to one of their teachers about cursive, and apparently it's back into the rotation of things that's on their docket of things to learn. They haven't started yet, but they're going to.
So there's just a whole 20 years of kids that have no idea how to do it. And
yeah, or at least in Gehenna. In Gehenna, it went away, but it has come back.
Interesting.
That is interesting. But so Lydia, it's always Lydia with these kinds of things, is interested in learning cursive on her own, and so she'll write things in cursive that she thinks is right, and she'll ask me if that's correct, and I'll tell her yes or no, or whatever's going on. They haven't tried to read my journal entries themselves yet. I would guess that Lydia could probably get by. She could probably suss it out, but the boys, no chance. They'd be able to read it.
Connor, I applaud you're still using cursive. I abandoned that as quickly as I could. Do you know how when a child is really small and you put them up in their high chair and they've got the little shelf, the little table in front of them, how they kind of bang their hands down?
Yeah.
And then when you first give them a utensil, they don't, of course, hold it right. They just sort of grab it. They just sort of grab it and they bang on the
Or your 8-year-old boys grab a utensil with a fist.
Yeah,
somebody teach me how to train that out of a boy.
They're trying to whatever. So if you can imagine, probably still a toddler that's holding like a fork and then just takes the fork clenched in their fist and just somehow managed to swirl it around in ink and then started trying to write cursive with it. That's kind of what mine looks like.
Okay.
Just to paint a picture of why I abandoned it as quickly as possible. In fact, I was trying the other day. Finley brought a little dry erase board over and we were writing notes back and forth as she's learning how to write better and read and things like that. And I was sitting there just goofing off, trying to remember, of course I know how to sign my name still, but I was trying to remember how to actually write every letter, not just do the quick scribble signature, but actually remember how to write it all out. If you're on YouTube, I'm so sorry. My hand's waving in front of my face nonstop. But I was trying to go to other letters that I don't use in my name. And I was trying to remember how to do those. And again, just looks like a toddler around a clenched fork dunked in ink, just trying to, scribble something out. It's so bad. I'm so bad at it now. It was never great, but it's almost unreadable. So I applaud your cursive efforts, and anyone out there still doing the cursive thing. I've pretty much given up that. I can text you, I can email you, I can jot down something not in cursive, but my cursive is pretty much gone.
I don't know why I'm into it. I just am. Yeah.
I work for a tech company. Why do I need cursive?
I mean, I don't need cursive.
Everything's on Slack. But. Well, you're a musician. You could be like, I'm trying to be artsy and fancy, and I carry a nice pen around, and so I'm gonna write things in cursive because that makes sense for you. I'm like the doofus tech bro. I'm like, just on Slack, I'm gonna send GIFs. I don't even use words anymore. So that's me. So there we go. What else has been going on? It's still
That's it for me.
that's it.
I think you had mentioned the holding eating utensils incorrectly.
Yeah.
And it's so we've been ever since like Christmas-ish time, we've been trying to make an effort, a successful effort so far to eat dinner when we're at home at a dining room table together.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've been doing that pretty well. And like I've been seeing the monsters of children that I'm raising. And I did not think that it would make sense that the guy who writes in cursive would also be worried about the way their kids are holding forks,
Yeah.
but I don't see myself as the kind of guy who's really bothered about the way people and you know what, out in public among adults, I know and I've noticed adults holding their forks wrong. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like it doesn't change my opinion of you. Nothing. Like it's fine. For some reason, it bothers me when my kids hold their forks in a fist,
Yeah.
and they're like, I think it's because they have like the chicken wing out there and they're shoveling like that. At least adults aren't usually doing this. Like if they're holding their fork wrong, they're still able to kind of like make it look like it's supposed to look.
Yeah. Well, and as people get older, then they're airing out their armpits, armpit hair, sweat, sweaty undershirt, things like that.
Mhm.
Which, especially as kids get older, you want them to break that and keep those arms down with lots of deodorant.
Yeah.
Not your kids, I just mean kids in general.
Oh, the boys again, they're on deodorant now already. Like that started a year or two ago. It was like, oh my gosh, what's that smell? You guys need to start wearing deodorant.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah. It's like, and by the way, this isn't just you. All your friends need it too. So there's no need to be self-conscious about it. Just enjoy. Just put it on. It smells great. You're gonna love it. That's funny. There was a thought about cursive. I totally lost my train of thought. But
Sorry.
hey, no. That was no, if it's right. I totally get. Oh, I was gonna say it's one end of the spectrum. It's not about cursive. It's one end of the spectrum. You've either got like they've got the chicken wing up while they, eat with the fork, or you got the George Costanzas using a fork and a knife on a Snickers, right? So like there's no normal. People are either weird about it or not. There's a whole subreddit about we want plates just for people who get mad about food coming out at restaurants on things that aren't plates. So people very understandably can be bothered and not bothered by all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
but especially bothered. So I get it. It's totally fine.
What about you? How's your week?
It's good. It's man, it's been like mention the garage sale. This is I've had a few people be like, "Yeah, hopefully you make, a few bucks." It's like, yeah, making money off of it's great. Totally not while we're doing it. We moved into our house almost two years ago. And the only time we got COVID was like right when we moved into our house. So it really killed all momentum. For like 2 weeks we were sick. And it killed all momentum of like unpacking and trying to clean and organize and stuff in the new house, which I'm very adamant about because people will often move into a new house or a new place and shove crap places and say they're going to do it later, or shove it in their garage, and then they can never use their garage and their closets and spaces are never organized. And that's something that bothers me, but it's not my house, so it doesn't really bother me, but it bothers me that it doesn't bother them, and I don't understand. But anyways, we've organized every part of our house, including the garage and closets, and we've organized every part of our house except the basement storage. That was the last place that has not been organized. So for me, this garage sale is really not about money. If we make a couple $100, great. That's just icing on the cake.
Mhm.
This is an excuse to go through the basement storage and sift through stuff and reorganize where things are, because our home, the storage, had some wood shelving already down there. Somebody had built. It's kind of an L shape, but the bottom part of the L is kind of short. So it's mostly just like a strip, but there's kind of a little cutout at the end.
Okay.
And so it's like along all the walls, there's shelving on the main side of the L.
That's great.
Awesome. But as we had moved in And as our parents have given us things from our childhood, now that we have a home, they've been getting shoved in wherever there's space. The shelving itself has not been organized. So I've been looking for an excuse to like, ideally, we don't have so much stuff. I don't think anything needs to be on the floor of the basement. I think everything can go up on shelves, and we need to organize it by least used stuff at the back and most used stuff at the front by the door. And like put all the Christmas stuff together because stuff gets jammed in random boxes, and so it's just that. So that's what we've been doing mostly for not even every day. It's 4 or 5 days over the last couple weeks, but now we're at crunch time. So I'm excited. The garage sales this weekend. Our neighborhood has a garage sale. They advertise it by the road where you pull into our subdivision, and they post it on social media. It's all about getting rid of stuff because whatever doesn't sell is likely going to the trash or is going to get donated. So that hopefully nothing comes back inside when we're done.
Amen. Yeah. Hard and fast rule. The moment it goes out into the garage sale, it does not come back inside the house. It doesn't
come back inside. So we'll either donate it first if we can, take it, whatever, sit it in the garage till we can, figure out who wants it, if they just want to come take it, or goes in the dumpster or goes in the trash. To go to the dumpster. So that's been my world.
I would encourage you to put a deadline on that, even to say like, hey, we're going to 1 week to try to get rid of this stuff, seeing if anybody else wants it. And at the end of that week, it's all loading up and going to the back of Goodwill. Like,
yeah.
And then it's done. Like, it doesn't feel good until it's done.
Yep. Yeah. The only thing that I'd be willing to do that would maybe take more time is if like some toys don't sell, I'd be willing to wait to like go to like downtown Columbus, maybe to drop them off at like Children's Hospital or something if they would want them, if they even collect stuff like that. But that's like best case scenario if stuff doesn't sell and you know, it's worthwhile. So that's been my world, man. I've had time to watch a little bit of stuff, but there's definitely stuff out there I haven't watched. But just I've watched a few things. So Welcome to Wrexham season 3 has been on Hulu / Disney Plus if you have both. Which is so good. They've done such a good job. If you don't know, we've talked about it before, but Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought a Welsh soccer team several years ago, and they're trying to get them from like the bottom of European soccer up to as high as they can over however long it takes. And that show is called Welcome to Wrexham, which Wrexham is the name of the city in Wales and the name of the soccer team. And I'm wearing the hat if you're watching on YouTube. And they've done such a good job with that show. And it's definitely not for kids because there's lots of language. They cuss all the time. It's soccer and it's Ryan Reynolds. He's Deadpool. But they've done such a good job at weaving in so many like human stories about people in the city or impact of, you know, the team getting better or like, gosh, man, you just can't help but like love the dudes for doing it and love the city and the team. And it's so interesting. They just celebrated the oldest fan who was 99 years old and was born in like 1931. Like the dude was old enough to see World War II happen. Wow, and like, you know, and he's watching the soccer team like get better and he had his 100th birthday. And so they celebrated that. And they've woven in the story of the women's team for Wrexham. And how they're doing and some of the stuff that's going on with the players. And gosh, it's so good. If you can handle the language, you know, not while your kids are around, but if you can handle the language, definitely check out the show. It's so, so good. It's that I think between that and Ted Lasso, those are really the catalysts of what's gotten me into watching, you know, soccer in the US and soccer internationally. So definitely plugging Welcome to Wrexham again. And then the first couple episodes of The Acolyte are out on Disney Plus. If you don't know what that is, that's new live action Star Wars that centers around the High Republic, which would be like 100 years before the original Star Wars movies. So this is like a different era. Theoretically, Yoda is alive somewhere because he's 900 years old in the original movies. But like, other than that, it's not really about, and we don't know if he'll show up, but it's not about any of the original series stuff. It's, I would say, mixed reviews so far. from fans. I think that's the vocal minority dragging it down, but I think it's solid. It's not awesome, but it is interesting. And I love that we're seeing a different era of live action Star Wars. Like they've never done this live action or even animated before. They've done this in like some of the old Legends books. But this has not been done live action. So I'm just excited for new Star Wars. I've been entertained, and I'm not a grouchy fan when it comes to Star Wars or Marvel. I'm not worried about what people call like woke Disney. Like most of that stuff to me is like they're like non-issues, and I'm just enjoying it because it's the same reason I go watch, you know, Transformers, Metal Beast smash up each other in a movie for 2 hours. I just want to be entertained, and I think it's interesting when it happens in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been interesting. Hopefully, as the show goes on, the season goes on, or the series. I don't know if it's a season or a series, but hopefully, as it goes on, it gets better and finishes really strong. Because I think there's a lot of people that are interested in a different era of Star Wars.
So because it's such a different era and predates every other piece of Star Wars content that we have so far, correct? You might not know the answer because we're just a few episodes in, but any recommendations, or do you feel like people should be familiar with something before watching?
No.
No.
I mean, it's literally as simple as Jedi good, Sith bad.
Okay.
Like, if you know that, you're fine. You know what the Jedi are. But I think that's clear enough to most people. Like they know, like, even if you don't know Star Wars, you know, like
I feel like
there's people that have good lightsabers and people that have bad lightsabers. The guys with the red ones look bad, and the guys with the green and blue ones look good.
Yeah. I feel like with so much of that stuff, because the timelines kind of intertwine and they'll go forward and back and things of that nature. Sometimes you can tell people like you can watch it, you'll be entertained and you'll get it. You won't miss the plot, but like there's going to be some cool, sweet things that happen that are nods other things or characters that you saw here now showing up here. And it's more interesting to the people who have seen the other content first versus this one, where it seems like maybe so far there hasn't been any of that, where it's like somebody would be missing out if they haven't been watching.
Yeah, the only thing that would be like canon in universe content are like comics, which are certainly not required to watch this show at all. So I would say it's very, and actually I mean, how it starts out is like a murder mystery. So person that looks like a bad guy kills somebody. Now you want to figure out what happened. So it's really simple in that sense that anyone can jump in if they're looking for something different. I would say if somebody's on the edge, keep listening to our podcast. And as the season goes on, I'll tell you whether it's worth watching or not. Like I said, solid start. I don't love it so far, but I like it and I'm entertained. And the 2 episodes I saw were interesting. So interesting enough to keep watching. So that's where we are. I think there's other things I would start with if I wanted a sense of Star Wars. And I had never seen anything, but I don't think anyone listening is probably that. They've probably at least seen something. So yeah, it's good. Those are the main things I've been watching. There's other content and other stuff that Dune 2 is on HBO. I need to go watch Dune 2 for sure. There's actually a bunch of stuff on Netflix right now that I haven't seen. So yeah, there's plenty of fun stuff to watch. I just need more time to watch it.
Indeed. Well, for me, I've been watching my boys continue to develop their WWE wrestling moves against each other, which has been fun. There's been a couple of funny moments where like I walk into a room and they both just have their shirts off. And so then I'll be like, oh, okay. So I just take my shirt off and sit down.
Yeah. What are we doing?
They have wrestling names now. So Isaac is Taekwondo Thunder.
Ooh.
And Joel, who has his entire life been in love with bunnies, he is Rampage Rabbit. And he has even made himself a mask.
Wow.
So he's kind of like the luchador kind of vibe.
That's like the power move as a kid, putting thunder in your name. Gosh, you really went for it. I'm proud of those guys. Yeah. It's funny you say that. We were talking about how different our childhoods were. I mean, I remember, so the house Corey and I grew up in, at the end of the hallway back to the bedrooms, it kind of opened up two ways, to either one way the dining room and kitchen, or the other way the living room. And we would come down the hallway with like blankets around our neck and boxing gloves on, out into the living room, and then we would box. Like,
Yeah.
we would box each other in the living room, and that was our rink. And that was one of the ways we had fun, until I probably inevitably cried almost every time, because Corey was older and bigger.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, I get that. Like, it was very similar, different sport, but very similar.
So watched a couple of things on is it National Geographic that's associated with Disney?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. The other day that were quite interesting. One was it was called like whales and shark versus shark, or orcas, or something like that. And basically it's this phenomena that like marine biologists are just now finding and figuring out what is going on with orcas killing sharks, great
Nice.
white sharks. They are like surgically removing just the liver from sharks and eating just the liver.
Whoa.
And it's something that they've now documented happening a few times in different parts of the world. And so they're like, we've never seen this before. We don't understand what's happening. So that's fun.
And then the shark would probably die, sink to the bottom, and a bunch of other fish would then start picking it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So normally the evidence is gone. Like,
Well, so one of them, they found the shark on the beach. And another one, they actually, there's one famous one off of California that that was actually videotaped by people who saw this thing happening.
whoa, that's wild.
And like these orcas are like, they're cooperating, and they've seemed to have maybe learned some things about sharks, the orcas have. Like, apparently if you flip a shark over upside down, it goes really docile. And so like you see these orcas flipping a shark over, bringing it to the surface, and then doing their thing. Like,
Wild.
it's insane. Yeah.
These videos, man, like, I won't get into shark weight because that's Corey's thing and he'll want to talk about it this summer. But I saw a video the other day that was a scuba diver, but they were near the top of the water. And then everything else is just ocean depths. But in the distance, you see a shark swimming slowly towards the diver. And they're basically explaining, like, don't kick and try to swim away. If they're like coming right at you, you like turn and face them, because they'll think you're a predator, not prey. And then try to put your hand out on their nose and then like push them away from you, and like follow through and hold your hand on their nose as long as you can, and then down the side. And they're like, obviously don't try to go swim with sharks to do this, but like, if you're in a dire situation, that's what you should try to do. And I'm like, there's no way I would be calm enough to remember that and actually even try to do it. If I even turned to look at the shark, I would just die. My heart would implode and I would die. And I would never be able to calmly enough execute that, to take that advice, if I was lucky enough to remember it. And it just blows me away that there's video of somebody. I know there are people who swim with sharks all the time, totally normal for them. There's no way. They can give me that advice all day long, and it's not going to happen.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I'm too juicy looking. They're going to want to take a little bite, and bye Dillon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think juicy looking Dillon is a good place to end.
I think that's a wonderful way to end. Speaking of wonderful ways to end, definitely head over to artiusman.com. There's tons of great products that you can check out by a business that's locally owned here out of Columbus, Ohio metropolitan area. Support those guys. Use promo code THEMIDDLE. Save 25% off your first order. They make incredible stuff. You'll be glad that you do. Really, really great friends of our show and the podcast, and really great beard stuff and skincare products and shower stuff. And Father's Day is coming up. Even if you just flash a picture of what you got him and tell him it's on the way, and that you've ordered something. I'm sure they'll appreciate it, as well as some quality time. So happy Father's Day. Is that this weekend? Happy Father's Day. That's
Yes,
going to
sir.
happen before we come back. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more next week since Corey is back. But happy Father's Day to everybody this weekend that might be listening. Head over to Artie's, man. Use promo code The Middle. Share the podcast with your best friends and your worst enemies. And we appreciate you listening. Peace.
See?